Okay, councillors, staff, gallery, good evening. I welcome you all to the meeting of the Cardinia Shire Council. Please note that this meeting is being webcast live over the internet on Council's website. Councillors will be available after the meeting if any member of the gallery wish to discuss any issue tonight and of interest. We will commence with the meeting with the following prayer. Almighty God, we humbly request that you bestow your blessings upon this council, direct and prosper our deliberations to the advancement of your glory and the betterment of the peoples of Cardinia Shire. Amen. Amen. The Cardinia Shire Council respectfully acknowledges that we are on the traditional land of the Bunurong and Wurundjeri people and pay respects to their elders past, present and future. We have received apologies for this evening from Councillor Jodie Owen and from Councillor Ray Brown from tonight's meeting. Minutes of previous meetings. Can I have a motion, please, to adopt the minutes of the meetings as listed? Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Carol Ryan. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Schilling. All those in favour? For? Carried. Councillors, are there any declarations of interest this evening? The Council conducts its meetings accordingly to the consent agenda. Councillors have advised of the matters for consideration this evening that they wish to discuss or debate. The remaining items will be adopted without discussion. The items withdrawn for tonight's meeting are item 3, the petition from the Kadena Primary School as withdrawn by Councillor Colin Ross. Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I move the recommendation that Council receive and note the petition tabled at the September Council meeting and respond to the petitioners in regard to signage and parking conditions at the school as detailed in this report.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Ryan. Back to you, Councillor Ross. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. For those who don't know what this petition is about, it's about the Cardinia Primary School, which is on the corner of Cardinia Road and Bellardo Road. They've had for quite a long time issues with that site being used now as things are getting busier as a bit of a rat run where people drive through there, because as the Monash Freeway gets busier and busier, people look to go to Cranbourne or thereabouts and they go around that way. School, one might say, being in Port Ward, how do you come about to put this petition forward? Most of the students who go to the school actually come from Pakenham and come from the ward that I'm in. So they approached me and said, we've had this issue, what can council do? We have been talking to some people about it. They already had a petition underway. They had 113 signatures. I said to them that at the back of this, we would present this to council. It would be tabled and you would get a report out of this about what council might be able to do to assist you and what responsibilities there are, so you can take it forward to any other meetings you go to. I'll only read one of the sections out of this that will be able to assist the school in their future endeavours in trying to get something done about this. Council is not responsible for the provision of parking for this or any other school. If additional parking is required for school use, then the school, is in consultation with the Department of Education and Training, should be looking at what options could be created in making additional parking to manage the demand of the school is creating. Council facilitated the school relocating its eastern fence along the Cardinia Road only a few years ago to create more space for parent parking and student access along Cardinia Road. The school council may wish to consider further changes within the school to accommodate apparent and increased parking being generated by the school. Sorry about this. I had another. I've actually lost the section that I was going to speak about that was the most important part. It does go on to say in one of the sections in the report that council would be happy to assist the school in advocacy to Vic Roads and to the department along the lines of seeing what we see as the demand in the area. So at the back of this, they will have a report they can take to their school council. They can go to meetings where that will have the professional makeup of a report come back about council's responsibilities and what we believe they could do in future in other areas. So anyway, I just table this. I hope this does help them out. And for all their effort and time, it gives them something that they can work forward with. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. You could actually add that onto your summing up if you've missed your spot there, because after Councillor Ryan speaks, you could maybe put that big point you want to bring up, Councillor. Councillor Ryan, as seconder. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. I'll keep it short and brief. I support Councillor Ross on this motion of petition and also support the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Thank you very much. Back to you, Councillor Ross. Oh no, any other councillors want to speak on this subject? Before I do go back to Councillor Ross, I'll give him a chance to pick up on that last important point that he wants to bring in, is that there are a lot of Cardinia, there must be every Cardinia resident, I think, on that petition, because it's not a big population on that petition. So they have picked up on that petition, Councillor. So back to you, Councillor, to sum up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've actually found the section, it was in relation to signage. It goes on to talk about the school speed zone signage is installed in accordance with guidelines and the memorandum of authorities issued by Vic Roads and is determined by the permanent speed limit and traffic volumes in a road like Kadena Road at this location. The strategic signage on Kadena Road complies with the current guidelines based at a current 60 kilometre limit outside school times and the existing volume along the traffic on this road. Minor improvements in signage location are being undertaken currently. However, when complete, the signage is considered to be suitable for the location and in accordance with current requirements. Now, this is the most important bit. If the school wish to fund or seek to improve the current strategic signage over and above the normal requirements to flashing electronic signage, council will support the school and advocate to Vic Roads for a higher level of school speed zone signage. So I think that's really important that they've got some support from us to say we will help assist them with their endeavours in this area to get some flashing lights on those speed zones. And that was all I was going to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, Councillor, you heard the debate as is. Those will signify in the usual manner. All those for? Carried. Item 6, appointment of the members of the Cardinia Access and Inclusion Advisory Committee, withdrawn by Councillor Schilling. Councillor Schilling.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move the officer's recommendation that the following members be appointed to the Cardinia Access and Inclusion Advisory Committee: David Edwards as a community representative, Sharon Thomas as a community representative, and Anne McCormack as a disability sector representative.
Thank you, Councillor. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Brett Owen. Back to you, Councillor Schilling.
Thank you, Mayor. It brings me great pleasure tonight to be able to move this report, which does officially welcome these amazing individuals to the Cardinia Access, Inclusion and Advisory Committee. They have a wealth of knowledge and lived experience which provides the committee with a very valuable insight on how we can be doing things better in the Shire to ensure access for all people with disabilities. I sit on this committee with Councillor Brett Owen, and as always, the dedication that these people bring to the committee is always incredibly refreshing, and it shows that advocacy is definitely alive and well in our local community, particularly when we're advocating for people with special needs and making sure that everyone is able to access community resources. It's one thing as a council to build these brand new modern facilities that look great, but if we're not going to be able to build them to an enhanced standard to make them accessible for all, we may as well not waste our time building them. And that's why it's so important to have this committee as an extra layer an extra layer to make sure that we really are on the ball and we are building these facilities up to the enhanced standard. There is nothing worse than working out after the facility is built that we then have to go and retrofit our facilities because we didn't listen to the people with access problems and build it to a standard that enabled full inclusion. This committee also, as well as being an advisory group to council and looking over our plans of our big reserves, which the committee does and provides feedback. We also have a great function in that we have a small budget of about $150,000 a year, and that's to provide small-scale upgrades across the community. And these aren't anything big. These are just those little things that make life that little bit better for people with a disability. And right across the ward, all residents benefit from these small upgrades. There's a few in Central Ward I'd just like to highlight, and other councillors might want to highlight what's been happening across in their wards. This budget funded the pathway from the car park to the community garden at Living and Learning. For a long time, people were saying this is meant to be an accessible community garden, yet if you have a wheelchair, a walker or unsteady gait, you actually can't get there. So thank goodness that that's actually been funded now, so the community garden is accessible to everyone. Pakenham Seniors, installation of a large steel plate over the gutter at the entrance, and that's to improve accessibility, particularly for those with mobility devices. Kadenia Life is due for some small-scale upgrades December this year, and that's for the installation of braille and directional signage for the benefit of people, again, of for all abilities, particularly those with vision impairment. And that piece of work came out from some advocacy from one of our local residents who uses the facility and did highlight that deficit. Finally, the Pakenham Hall, Pakenham Library, we've been able to relocate, well, it's in the process now, relocate the auto access door into the accessible toilet where scooter access is very difficult. Once again, that came back from our user groups saying we're struggling, and by submitting these requests to this committee, we're then able to prioritise and then make those necessary changes. And I'm very aware that the focus of this report wasn't to talk about the achievements of the committee, but I believe it is important to let the community know that this advisory group does exist and that they are advocating very hard for those in the community with special needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Schilling. Seconded to speak, Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Schilling, for that great report. You really summed up the Access and Inclusion Committee very well. I congratulate the continued members that are continuing on this committee. It is a fantastic committee, and I've been on it for a number of years over my time on council, and I just really want to see the council as a whole appreciate and embrace access for all right across the organisation. And I know we're getting better, but we need to get better. It's not a couple of officers at council and a couple of councillors. The whole organisation has to think access for all in everything we do. And I see that we are improving, but we need to get better. I think we do great in relation to our campaign in relation to Together We Can. I think across the organisation we're embracing it. So access for all is something I want to see embraced throughout the organisation, whether you're engineering, planning, community wellbeing across the organisation. So I just want to see that embraced. I just want to congratulate you. You talk about our access upgrades, and some of them are, which we have recently completed, was the Gembrook Community Centre. So we've got automatic doors being installed at this great community facility in Gembrook, improved car parking and improved ramp access. So that was a major upgrade and fantastic. We're doing the same at the Career Up Seniors in relation to automatic doors. Anyone who's been to previously, before the work was done, these heavy doors, that's not really, it's not accessible, let alone if you've got a pram or you're an older person or you've got a temporary disability. So having those automatic doors is great. We're doing works at the Garfield pool to improve access for people of all abilities. So it's a great program that we've got, and we're planning for the next list. So I just want to thank the committee. They do a great job. They've got and we're getting better in this space. As a committee, they're going to look over plans in relation to new facilities, provide their advice, their lived experience. There's no greater knowledge gathering process than listening to either a person with a disability or a carer. And that's why what they bring to this committee is just invaluable, and I thank them for it and looking forward to working with them in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillors. Any other speakers on this subject? For or against? Councillor Carol Ryan. Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. I want to commend the committee for doing such a wonderful job. I think the committee knows that I'm pretty savvy about disabilities and access for all, as Councillor Owen said. And accessibility for all means equality for everybody. And it means that it makes life a lot more simpler for someone that's walking with a walking frame or a walking stick or in a wheelchair, or who's legally blind, or who even has a guide dog. The difficulties sometimes the dogs run into is quite daunting to the person that has the dog. So I just wanted to throw in that I am so happy that there's such a committee that's so passionate about getting this accessibility to the general public, and focusing on people that really, really need our help in a lot of ways, and appreciate what the committee does for this community. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other speakers on this subject? Councillor Ross.
I must say this committee is amazing. When I first got on council nearly 11 years ago, the disability area was almost in the dark ages because we had so many facilities that weren't access and inclusion, because when they were built, that wasn't a thing that people looked at as something that had to be put into them. I must say our population has increased immeasurably, and it will continue in the future, which means people with either needing full access and inclusion is going to come faster and faster, whether it be with children, with older people, or people who just carry disabilities with them. I must say this committee has done an amazing job over the years, and I can tell you the facility here at the council offices, when they were first designed and built, had the Access and Inclusion Committee went along and had a look at them, and within about 2 minutes of entering the facility, they noted some things that were going to, cause problems for people who need an all-ability space to access the building. You have a look at our library. The Access and Inclusion Committee helped get those amazing facilities for people who are disabled. If they go there, they've got they put in for a grant to get the swing and the whole lot of it inside their toilets there, which is absolutely amazing. I must say, for anyone who goes to Deep Creek Reserve, once it opens, you'll notice that the access and inclusion area there is absolutely second to none. It will be absolutely amazing. I must say, this committee had a great impact the other day on the cultural centre, on the additional stage that was coming about there. People went down and visited, and when they visited, they noted a couple of things instantly when they walked in, that only if you were either disabled or you had specialist knowledge that you would pick up instantly. So they've seen great things happen in this space, and as council has seen the need in this area, more money has been put aside out of our budget to do these things. I must say, I'm really impressed by the different people who are now getting on the Access and Inclusion Committee. I know Anne McCormack carries with her like almost a CEO level of expertise in this area, and she's an amazing lady from Outlook. and she will bring a wealth of knowledge to this space. I must say, for those on the committee, they've done a wonderful job. I've sat here and watched over the years, and I just say the impact they've had for people who wouldn't have the facilities they've got now has been great. So congratulations to those people coming on, and I know as a councillor I'll be looking forward to supporting in the budget the needs that they have. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Any other speakers on this subject? Before going back to the mover, Councillor Schilling, it was an honour for me to go and actually conduct the AGM when these wonderful people were elected the other day. So it was really great to come and support this fantastic committee. They do a really good job in that space. So back to you, Councillor Schilling, to sum up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, councillors, for your supportive comments as well. It means a lot, and I'm sure that the committee, if they're not watching tonight, they'll be very pleased to know. So these members, we have a every year we put another 3 members go up for election again. So these members have already had quite a significant role to play in the upgrades of our buildings, and I look forward to being able to spend the next final 12 months of this council term with them. There's a few things I'd just like to quickly add. The Access and Inclusion Committee, there's a new disability access officer that we have at council that council have actually funded. That was funding that was state government funding, which has since ceased. So council are now internally funding our own access worker, Emily. She's new to the role and she's fantastic and will bring a whole lot of new passion and energy to the role, and we're already seeing that now. I would also like to thank our CEO, Carol Jeffs, who did come earlier on in the year and present to the committee. The committee were incredibly impressed with our new CEO and the seriousness that she takes towards access and inclusion, and the profile lifting of that committee, particularly around disability access now being presented to the senior leadership team on a regular basis, so everyone's on the same page. It's all really important. Finally, when it comes to budgets, we hear a lot. There's a lot of commentary around councillors and around council and budget and ratepayers' money. And look, and I'm very happy to look over balance sheets in great detail and make sure that we're not wasting any money. But when it comes to access and inclusion, the bottom line shouldn't be spoken about. And I say this all the time in the chamber. Social capital shouldn't be debated as a budget item. If we need to upgrade a facility or we need to get a facility up to scratch, that should go without debate or without say and should be in the building plans from day one. So once again, thank you very much to the Access and Inclusion Committee, and I look forward to working with them for another 12 months. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Well said. We've heard the debate from our councillors. All those in favour? For? Carried. Item 12, the quarterly report, implementation of the council's resolutions. Was withdrawn by Councillor Brett Owen. Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that Council note the report detailing the implementation of council resolutions for the period July to September 2019. I move so.
Thank you, Councillor. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Ross. Back to you, Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Ross. This is a relatively new item in our council agenda, and I think it's a really good one. It contains obviously an update of our resolutions of council that councillors have voted on and passed, and particularly I'm really interested in the notice of motions that councillors put in. It might be action from a petition or an issue, and previously they weren't reported on, as in what was the outcome, and as a council you just hope that was done. So this report now details the actions and the outcomes of each motion. And going forward, this report will include previous quarters' information that's still unresolved or unfinished or not closed. So this will be really good. It'll be a good tool for councillors, but also a good tool for residents. If they're interested on an issue, it will provide an update in relation to ticking off, achieving what the intended motion, resolution, decision of council was. So I look forward to that. I just think it's a really good report, and I thank our CEO for bringing this agenda item now onto our council agenda. So a couple of things I wanted to talk about. It's in the report, but the Rotary Toilet, there was a petition. The Packen Rotary have been promised $180,000 from the federal government. Mr. Jason Wood, this was an election commitment. This is at Rotary Park to purchase a toilet block, and council will connect the sewer. We are talking to the Rotary about the best means of delivering this project. It may mean that Rotary may provide that funding from the feds to council to deliver that. But I look forward to this toilet being installed. Anyone who's done the park run would definitely appreciate a facility like this being there, particularly if you've got children. That is such a great event. That park is a great park, and to have that toilet facility there would be great, and council's contributing to that. So look forward to that happening. In relation to Glisman Road, a few months ago we resolved on Glisman Road and put some actions in place. So we have not yet received the approval from the Minister to exhibit this amendment, so no contact has been made with the school or Minister. So that was an amendment that I put in relation to the school, to have a conversation with the Education Department and the school to see, further improvements to the Beaconsfield Primary School could be part of that Glisman Road development. Salisbury Road intersection, that was something that I put a notice of motion in on behalf of the Upper Beaconsfield community. So it's still an ongoing issue. Department of Transport have responded to advise that in view of their concerns, the Department of Transport will investigate this intersection to determine if there are any treatments that could be developed to address councils and the community's concerns. So that is ongoing. We're working with the community, so that is still unresolved. And also the Beaconsfield Memorial Park. I'm really interested in this project, and I look forward to other opportunities that might be available in relation to funding and, of course, the council budget process as well. So thank you to the officers who prepared this report, and I think it's a really good item going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Councillor Ross, seconded to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I echo Councillor Owen's sentiments on this. I think this is a great initiative. Thank you very much to the CEO and the council officers who put this report together. I know for a long time on council there were certain motions that were passed through over a lot of years, and sometimes they do take quite a long time to have actions taken to them. But sometimes you come down the track and you're not quite sure where they're up to or what's happened to them or whatever. For anyone who wants to look through any motions that have gone through our town planning meeting or our general council meeting, this report, which covers 17 pages on this occasion, it goes through the meeting where the motion took place, the subject, the resolution that was on hand, the responsible officer who's taking care of this, and a completion date with some basis around that. So it shows who moved it, who seconded it. So I think this will be really helpful for people to follow. So we as councillors, the community, and even the staff will know where things are up to, or they'll have to keep issuing it in the months ahead to make sure that it is still tabled all the time. Anyway, I think that's great. I'm not going to go through 17 pages of information there. It's all for everyone to see. But I think it is a really good addition to our program. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Any other councillors to speak on this particular item? Quarterly report? No? I'll go back to Councillor Brett Owen to sum up. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor. No further. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Okay, councillors, you've heard the remarks and debate we've had in here today on this subject. All those for the item? For? Carried. Item 13, Major Projects Report, withdrawn also by Councillor Brett Owen. Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the report be noted.
Thank you, Councillor. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Springfield. Back to you, Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Springfield. I think all councillors like this report because it provides a good update of where some of our major projects are at. And I briefly wanted to talk a little bit about Deep Creek. Deep Creek Reserve will officially open this Saturday. And I just wanted to take the time to acknowledge the history of that reserve, if that's appropriate, Mr. Mayor, because it is such an achievement. You know, there's a long story. Not everyone in this room would know that story. And it dates back, and I note that there's several people that fought for that community asset over a number of years, and they're in the gallery tonight. So it's really great that they're present. It dates back in 1977. Landowners in the Ryan Road area contribute to the Shire of Pakenham a total of approximately 80 hectares, that's 200 acres, of land for recreation, drainage and road purposes. A retarding basin would collect drainage and floodwater flowing out of Kennedy Creek, Pakenham Creek, Whiskey Creek and Deep Creek. So in 1978, local golfers from the Pakenham Golf Club leased 60 hectares of land and started the golf club. In 1980, the remaining land, approximately 30 hectares, which is the south, which is where all the activity is happening now, was leased out for grazing until council and water authorities can afford to convert the land to community park and wetlands. So that was in 1980. In 2003, the council in its day advertised the total site, including the golf course, for sale, quickly attracting developers. And a plan for 600 lot residential subdivision is put forward with a $22 million price tag, an application for rezoning the public park and recreation zone to residential. So this is where this issue sort of heats up and why people got behind it. So in 2004, residents decided that this open space should not be lost to the community as originally intended, and the Cardinia Ratepayers and Residents Association coordinate a campaign to keep the land for community use. A government panel hears the views of residents, environmental experts, concerns the flood-prone nature of the land, the presence of endangered species and the need for community open space, and finally recommends that the land should not be used for residential subdivision. So that was a strong campaign and the Gazette covered it really well. I was a resident at that time, and that was one of the issues I stood for council to stop that. So in early 2005, council does not accept the panel finding, as in, not to rezone it, and proceeds with the rezoning process. So irrespective of the panel, the council in the day decided to move forward, continue with advocating to the government to rezoning. So a petition circulated again, and in 2007, in August, the minister's decision was to endorse the panel's findings and refuse the application for rezoning. So the government said no. And there were still some concerns, but eventually council said this will be a park. And in 2011, we started on a draft master plan for the reserve, and then it just built up from there. And you can imagine the sort of feelings that some people in our community that went through that story are feeling now, and hopefully all those people can come to the opening on Saturday to celebrate. And I know there's a long history, and this council will recognise that history going forward in signage, etc. There's a park seat that has been removed through the development work, so it would be great to have a park seat acknowledging that history. So thank you to all those people who advocated, because we've now got this amazing facility. I was speaking to the Pakenham Golf Club president on Friday night, and he is just, he's overwhelmed. He's just so happy. His club is so happy of the result that's before us, and just sees so many opportunities. So I encourage everyone to come to that opening, and thank you to all those people involved in that story. So I might leave it there, and if there's any other councillors that want to talk on any of these items, please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Just second to Councillor Springfield.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Owen. That was well spoken, and I too are very much looking forward to Saturday for the opening of this fantastic facility. It is something we
next level that we haven't had here before, and it's a fantastic piece of work that we've done for that. So, and I would like to congratulate all the previous councillors and community members that Councillor Owen pointed out before my time on council that helped to make this project a reality from what it could have been. So that's fantastic work, and we've got to commend the people in the community that step up as we represent best we can their needs and listen to their desires and their will in the community. So I think that was a really good outcome achieved by previous councils, and we should honour that. So thank you, Councillor Owen. I'll just briefly mention a couple of things that I'm excited about. Also, up in the Ranges area of our fantastic Shire, the Gembrook Leisure Park is undergoing a major overhaul at the moment. It's due for completion by December, which will be fantastic. It's on track at this point in time, and it's going to be a wonderful outside play facility, ready in time for the summer holidays for the kids and the residents up there. So that's going to be a really good achievement as well. Again, it's something next level, something we haven't seen before delivered in a play facility in that region. So it's going to be a really great outcome. Also, I'd just like to quickly mention the Hills Hub. Unfortunately, the Hills Hub has been delayed slightly due to some services and such in the pipeworks and getting connections through the NBN, we're told. So unfortunately, it's not going to be delivered by the end of this month as we were hoping, but will be very soon. And look, on another note, I just want to make a quick mention. We've made a mistake in some of our printing, which is happens to be in our report as well, and it's for the Dandenong Rangers Community Bank Group, and somewhere along the line in our communications team, we've accidentally printed in here the Eastern Dandenong Rangers Group, but just to make my apologies to anyone listening there, it is for the Dandenong Rangers Community Bank Group, which donated $250,000 towards this project, which we are mighty grateful for, and the community is very thankful for. And they're a great, all the Bendigo community bank groups that we've worked with throughout our Shire have really been supportive of our projects along the way, and this group particularly has delivered some wonderful outcomes with Chandler Reserve and other things in our Shire. So just to make mention of them, my apologies to that group for the very slight misspelling, but yes, just wanted to make mention. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Springfield. Any other councillors want to speak on this subject? Councillor Ross on major projects. Thank you, Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just echoing Councillor Owen's report on the Deep Creek Reserve. I must say, Deep Creek Reserve was once in Central Ward, the Pakenham Ward, when I first got on council, so was Beaconsfield. And then it changed hands and we gave it over to Port Ward. And it's been there for the last 2 terms, even though it still is in Pakenham. I must say, this issue of what was going to happen with there is the reason I'm on council. Without that issue, I wouldn't be a councillor now. In fact, I didn't even know what council was about before this issue came up. At the time, I was an unpaid role. I was the president of the Gippsland Trades and Labour Council, and we got approached by a group of residents from the Cardinia Resident Ratepayers Association with Gloria. And Gloria came to our group and said, the council aren't listening. They've sold the land to Pete & Co. They've got the deposit and they're waiting for it to get rezoned so it can turn into all housing. And we asked them whether they had community support. And at the time they said, we believe we do. And we said, well, we'll get some petitions together, as Councillor Owen said, get a campaign going. So anyway, we went and printed a heap of petitions. They went out, and within 3 weeks, I think they had about 2,500 people signed that it wasn't in the community's interest to sell it off. So we said, well, how long since you've been to see the minister about this? They said, we've never been to see the minister. We said, well, it's about time we go into there to show him the petition and talk about all the paper clippings that you've got on the history of all of this. So anyway, the Shallards went in, another chap, Terry, went in, Gloria went in, and we went in as a delegation to talk about the issue. And at the time, there'd been an independent panel give a decision that it should not be rezoned. It should stay in open space recreation, because once you cut it up slightly, then you can break it up into multiple bits. So the object was, if you can break a little bit off, you can break the whole lot up. So it wasn't in the community's interest, Rob Hull said, and he'd never had a panel decision ever overturned by anyone. Once he made the decision, that would be it. So anyway, we went in to meet with Justin Madden, the Minister for Planning, and when we went in to meet with him, he said he was unaware of all these things. He thought the whole the community supported it being sold off. And the group said, no, that's not true. So anyway, I thought that was done. So I came to a council meeting for the first time believing that the council would probably hand the money back to Pete and Co and everything would move on and it wouldn't be sold. But unfortunately, I went home and said to my wife, they're not going to hand the money back. They're still going to keep going ahead with it. She said, what needs to be done? And I said, I think some of these people need to go. They're not listening to the community anymore. So she said, well, who would replace these people? I said, I have no idea. Someone will. And in the end, she said, well, you're pretty passionate about the whole thing. Why don't you run for council? So long story short, I ran for council. And I must say, for a long time, this was a real bugbear for council, what we would do with that space once we decided we weren't going to sell it, because it required millions of dollars to go into it to turn it into something meaningful that the community could take ownership. There were different options like cut the front off and sell that, but they weren't sure what they were going to do down the back. I must say the partnership between the golf club, the Environment Coalition and the disability area has been absolutely amazing. And I must say, to get the money that's been given by all the levels of government and council putting in is absolutely outstanding. And I must say, I wasn't sold on it until I saw really how much investment there was and the benefit to the community. And I know that future councils won't bulldoze this site because it's got a heap of things built on it and the community will take great ownership. So I'm just really excited. This is one of the things I stood for council, and I'm just really just impressed for the people who stood up. Unfortunately, Mrs. Shallard won't be able to come along because she's passed away, but I'm sure she'll be looking down on this occasion and being very proud of that's happened. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Any other speakers on major projects? Oh, Councillor Carol Ryan, of course.
Yeah, through you. Yes, I just wanted to cover the James Bath Reserve Pavilion there, and Councillor Schilling and Councillor Ross and myself went down there last week to have a look at the outbuildings, also the netball courts, the cricket nets, and space for baseball, other sports that are going to be there for the
Is it back on? It's back on.
Oh, okay. Oh, thank you, Doug. You mightn't want to. And we tried out the playground equipment as well, which was quite interesting. They had a teepee made out of rope, and of course, before we knew it, Councillor Ross was up the top there, and Councillor Schilling was alongside. So I said, if they're going to fall, I'm not going to catch them. But luckily enough, we're all pretty safe. So it's childproof, so which is really great. I think this has been a long time coming for the community, and I think it will be a well-used pavilion in the near future. And go down and have a look, because it's just something that was worthwhile waiting for. And also we went to the Kadena Culture Centre, and that's nearly on its completion as well, and what it's got to offer there we tried out the ballet studio, seeing if that works really well with the mirrors. So there were photos taken there, so they'll be very interesting photos that come out wherever they come out. And just the services there. One of the things that I was really passionate about was the green room for our top artists that are going to come to our community, and for them to come to our community and perform, we really need a area that is safe for them, where they can have something to eat, something to drink, and chill out before they do their next show. And I think when you have something like that and top of the range facility for our community again. So I'm so proud for the teams that have been working on these projects. And so again, go along, have a look, and again, the inclusion of the access for disabilities and the toilet access there is absolutely wonderful. So please go and have a look and use full use of it, because when the artwork's going to be there, the art shows, it's going to be fantastic. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Any other speakers on major projects? Before I go back to Councillor Owen, I would like to say thank you to the historian councillors we have in the building this evening about all the information. It's fantastic. Did a really great job. And I would also like to acknowledge, and I know the story too, I was there. I also like to acknowledge the major role that the Cardinia Ratepayers Association had in that particular item. Without their input and their drive behind that campaign, there'd be houses all over that golf course today. So it'd be certainly made a big difference. And there was a certain swimming pool that was happening at the same time that caused a few problems as well within our community. So we have them to thank. But I'll go back to Councillor Owen to sum up. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councillors, on your comments. And yeah, it's really good to reflect on the history. As I said before, not everyone knows it, so it's good to tell the story. So I invite everyone. Everyone's invited to the opening. It starts at 10 a.m. At Deep Creek this coming Saturday, and there will be activities for the family from 11. So I encourage everyone to go down there if they can. So just in relation to a couple of other items quickly, the footpath program. I think we've got about 300 future footpaths on our footpath program, worth I think millions of dollars, tens and tens of millions of dollars. So we got a list through priorities, and I'm really pleased that a couple of the paths in my ward, Old Princess Highway, Beaconsfield, that's on the sort of the south side of the Old Princess Highway from the freeway intersection going into Beaconsfield to Desmond Court, which will provide a really complete linkage between the Panorama Estate to the south side of Beaconsfield going into St Francis and the railway station. So that's going to be an interesting path. It's the topography is quite hilly on that hill face there, so it's going to go up and down, but great views looking over Pink Hill sort of thing. But that's going to be a great sort of linkage. Also, there'll be further paths in Payne Road, Beaconsfield. We know there's quite a lot of residents that live up Mount Misery. So to improve that footpath is really important. Particularly, it does link into a well-utilised path along Beaconsfield Emerald Road into Beaconsfield. So it's not a separate section. It will be linking into other strategic paths. Kenilworth Avenue as well. We know that what's going to happen along Kenilworth in relation to shared footpaths, but this will finish the link from Old Coach Lane or Station Street to the Beaconsfield Railway Station, which is really good. We want to encourage people to either walk or ride their bike, because we know they currently can't get a car park at Beaconsfield Railway Station. So that will improve those footpath connections. It's a good program. I do encourage. We do have a priority list, and it does. We've got a great rating system that one of our officers explains to councillors regularly, that if there is a petition or a request comes via a community group or a township committee, it does elevate it in priority. So if people are wanting footpaths, particularly community groups, definitely consider, because I know those ones have been advocated for a long time. So thank you, Mayor. That's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Before heard the debate we had tonight on major projects, all those in favour, for? Carried. Okay, item 14. Notice of motion. Number 1049, as withdrawn by Councillor Springfield. Councillor Springfield, to you.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move that Council resolves as follows. The Chief Executive Officer must ensure that Council authorised officers refrain from enforcing Clause 60H 1.1 of Kadenia Shire Council Local Law 17 to the extent that Clause 60H 1.1 prohibits open-air fires from burning or continuing to burn on Tuesdays, Wednesdays and Thursdays in burn-off areas as defined by Clause 60A of Local Law 17. This resolution applies to conduct occurring during the period commencing 1st of November 2019 and continuing until whichever is earlier of A, midnight on the 30th of November 2019, or B, the commencement of the declared fire danger period. 2, all other requirements of Part 5A of Local Law 17 continue to apply during this period. And 3, Council notes that the purpose and intention of this resolution is to promote higher levels of fuel reduction in burn-off areas in preparation for the 2019-2020 fire season.
Thank you, Councillor Springfield. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Owen. Back to you, Councillor Springfield.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to my fellow councillors. It's good to see people are fighting for it to jump up and second this motion. I hope that signifies the support that I shall receive for this tonight's meeting. The intention of this, in between all the legal sounding terms of the first part of it, but the intention is outlined at the end there, which is the purpose of this motion is to enable residents the most opportunities they can have leading up to the start of the fire danger period to commence fuel reduction in their properties. I've lived in the hills my whole life. I remember my first memory is of Ash Wednesday. I remember coming out to my back doorstep and looking up, and I could see it looked like the sky was on fire. And this was from Emerald, but it was just a reflection in all the smoke that was in the air and the reflection of all the fire underneath in the surrounding areas of Cockatoo and Upper Beaconsfield. And I was only 3.5 years old at the time, but I do remember that. And it sits with me that every year as we lead into the fire danger period, the risk that we face within our shire, within our communities. And we were made very aware of this at the start of this year when we had the Bunyip complex fires. And it can hit you by surprise with you don't know what's coming. This allowing people to burn off for more days, we have a fire policy, we have an open air burning policy for a reason, to hit a balance between fuel reduction for residents and the amenity for other residents that don't wish to see smoke burning all the time. And I don't agree with burning off all the time. That's not my preferred method of fuel reduction. I think there is, other methods to be explored, but the purpose of this is to allow people that do wish to, people that feel like that's their only and their best way, to give them the opportunity to do so. Because next time we're struck with a disaster, I want to believe that this council has done everything that we can within our powers, within our limited powers of a municipal organisation, to create the best and safest outcomes for our communities. So this is my hope and why I've put this motion forward. I'll just want to mention too, like I said, it's not my preferred method. I'm quite an environmental advocate, and I think that burning off all the time, it creates other hazards. As well as reducing fire hazards, it creates hazards in the ozone, it creates hazards in the atmosphere and for neighbours and such. So what I would like to make mention is your alternatives for the community out there. And we have 2 weekends coming up, where you can have free green waste drop-offs for your trailer loads of green waste. And I don't believe there's a limit on it. I'm not sure how many times you can go to it, but I think if you can load up your trailer and you probably go there Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, and really get rid of some of this. So you can look it up on our website for further information, but it's going to be on Friday the 8th of November to Monday the 11th of November at Future Recycling Transfer Station, which is in Exchange Drive in Pakenham. And then the following weekend, on Friday the 15th of November to Monday the 18th of November at the Listerfield Recovery Centre down in Wellington Road in Listerfield, where any residents of Cardinia Shire can go and take their green waste drop-off and free of charge. You just got to show some ID to show that you are a rate-paying resident of this shire or a resident of this shire. Doesn't matter if you pay rates or not. But you can... and to allow you to get your fuel reduction. So look, I'll leave it at that for the moment, but thank you, Mayor, and thank you to my councillors for considering this motion.
Well spoken, Councillor Springfield. Seconded by Councillor Owen. Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Springfield. I support you in this motion. I commend you in looking outside the square in relation to this issue. It's one of the hardest policies, that I think a council has to determine on. And council is about to start a review of the open air burning policy. So that you'll see that advertised. We're going to have drop-in sessions and so forth, where the whole issue of open air burning will be reviewed. And I know of two people, I won't name them, but you got people of the extreme ends of this issue. One person wants to burn off every day of the week. Other persons, wants no burning off and prohibiting wood fires that people have, for warmth or cooking, particularly in our hills. There's no alternative, bottled gas or something like that. So we've got people on two extremes, and as a council, we're going to review this policy and have those two extreme and views and views in between, and we've got to come up with a policy. And I know that the Upper Beaconsfield community has been going through a group, and they would be pleased with this notice of motion in relation to a start to address their wants. They want some changes to the open air burning policy, and this is along the lines of one of their aspects of before the fire periods commences, have more days to burn. So that addresses some of their requests, but their submission, their requests will be considered as part of this review, and councillors will go through that process over the next 12 months and come up with an adopted final policy. But it's a difficult issue. You can't please everyone, and that's what I've learnt on this issue, on this policy. You cannot. And as councillors, we've got to obviously make a hard decision in what we think is best for our whole community, whole council response. So I commend Councillor Springfield on this. I support him. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Any other speakers on this subject? Councillor Wilmot.
Thank you, Mayor. And I totally agree with what Councillor Owen has just said. This is probably the most difficult policy. The last review of this policy went forever, it seemed like, and the submissions we received were into the hundreds the last go around, and I would encourage people to put in submissions again on this next lot of consultation, particularly around this. This is a trial that people have been asking for this for the 7 years that I've been on council. I've had several people ask for this extended period just before the fire danger period to really clean up their properties. So I'll be interested to see how many people make submissions either for or against this, because without the viewpoints of our public, we're just flying in the dark, really. So we do need to hear back from people. I will support this tonight, but I want to just emphasise that whilst we're extending the days of when you can burn, there are still guidelines and rules around how you can burn and how you burn off responsibly. And I encourage people to stick to those guidelines, because every time somebody lights a fire to burn off, there is a risk that that fire could get out of control. And if you talk to our CFA volunteers, that happens regularly over the summer months. So whilst we're extending the days, you still must burn off responsibly. We don't want to overburden our volunteers through the CFA with call-outs that just should not happen. So if it's a windy day, don't burn off. Be respectful of your neighbours. If your burn pile is wet, don't burn off because it creates too much smoke. And make sure that you've got all the fire prevention equipment handy, a hose with access to water. All of those sorts of things is the responsible way to do it. And all too often people light a fire and just watch it for 5 minutes and then walk away from it and forget about it and go and create the next pile to start fire. That's not a responsible thing to do. So whilst I agree that this is a good thing to try, particularly at the moment with the consultation open, I still encourage people to, as Councillor Springfield highlighted, take advantage of those green drop-off days. You can go there as often as you like, I believe, so take advantage. We've also got hard rubbish collection starting this weekend, and that'll run over the month of November as well. So between the 3 different options for people to clean up their properties, I think people are going to have the best chance they've ever had, really. So please make the most of the options of getting rid of your green waste other than burning. And if you still, and there are properties, plenty of properties in the hills areas that are heavily treed, and the green waste bin and these other services aren't adequate to get rid of all their waste. They do need to have the option to burn off. So at the end of this period, I'll be very interested to see whether it's had an impact on fires that get out of control, whether the CFAs are reporting that they've had more call-outs for those reasons, and I'll be interested to see whether the public like it or not like it. So it'll be a very interesting time, but I'll support this trial for this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilmot, for your very wise words, and we all appreciate that. Any other councillors to speak on this item? I'll go back to you, Councillor Springfield, to sum up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to my fellow councillors. Well spoken and wise words indeed, and I agree with all the sentiments put forward. It is a difficult policy. All policies are difficult to find balance between differing views within the community and needs for the community. But again, I'll just point out, I put this forward, in the hope that this may help some people. If in the worst case scenario, if this helps someone reduce their fire, their fuel reduction within their backyard, and it saves someone's property if we have a disaster in the coming months, then I think this will be a great outcome. Again, I encourage everyone to use the green drop-offs because it's not the best way to reduce fuel. Like, we reduce it from fuel on the ground, but it goes somewhere else. It just turns into something else. But I also hope that highlighting this and discussing it tonight also reminds a few people, even though we've had a lot of wet weather lately and some cold, miserable days over the weekend, we are likely only about 5-6 weeks out from the declared fire danger period when no one can burn off again. It hasn't been declared yet as of half an hour ago when I looked on the website, but soon enough it will be, and all too often, year after year, it catches people by surprise, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, it's a fire danger period, and I've got all this, I've still got all this mess in my backyard. What do I do with it? So I implore the community just to be thinking to get fire ready on a number of different fronts, and start thinking about it now rather than waiting until the first extreme weather day comes in, and then you start thinking about how to get fire ready. So that's my hope, and look, I hope my councillors in the room will support this motion. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Springfield. Well done. All those in favour? For? Carried. That concludes discussion of the items withdrawn, and just to mention to the gallery, withdrawn means that the councillors have brought them up to speak. Can I have a motion, please, to adopt the recommendations for the balance of the items listed? Can I have a mover? Thanks. Councillor Carol Ryan, seconder. Councillor Ross. All those in favour? For? Carried. Reports and minutes of committees. I note that several reports from various committees have been tabled in addition to the minutes of recent council briefing sessions. And these are available if any councillor wishes to view them. Councillors, have we got any reports, any matters to report? Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The other day I had the pleasure of going along to a group down at the Bunyip Football Club in conjunction with the bushfires that were held in the area, and the CFA attended and local residents attended, and it was called Blokes Night Out, and I had the pleasure of representing the Mayor there. He had another event on. At this evening, I was able to present the AFL player Wayne Swass, who runs a group called Pucker Up. And for anyone who knows Wayne Swass, he's a guy who played, I think, 279 games of AFL football, played in premierships, made teams of the century, won the best and fairest at North Melbourne in a premiership season. He shared an amazing journey of his own life, and he challenges those who attend. And we had 60 attendees, men, and he basically goes through a little bit about his shame and embarrassment in his life, where he was standing at the MCG in front of 100,000 people after getting 26 kicks, I think 9 clearances, kicking 2 goals in a premiership winning team, holding the jumper above his head and the cup in one hand, and thinking about how he might be able to end his life because he felt so lonely. And he shared how he carried all his football career, the embarrassment about feeling hugely depressed, and he would drink lots to try and forget. He would also self-medicate with marijuana too to try and ease the burden, but he carried shame with him, which made it even worse. And he came along and was absolutely down to earth with all the guys that were there. He talked about things like, how often do people service your car? How often do you get your car repaired? And then he went on and he said, who goes to see a doctor if you're ill or you're sick? Everyone put up their hand. He said, how many people have ever been to see anyone about the brain box? He said, what runs everything? There's only 2 people in the whole room who put their hand up. He said, well, that's the thing that runs everything in your life. If that's not okay, you're actually not going okay. And it's and I must say, to cut a long story short, there were 60 guys sitting in that room, and his goal is to challenge people to think outside the box. And fortunately, we had council staff there who are great in this area, and also there was another lady there from Windermere, and she's a crisis manager. And when they asked at the end of it if anyone would like to go and have a talk to the crisis manager, there were 8 guys out of the 60 who walked up and handed a card and said, I'd like to have a chat outside of here. So I just think this is an amazing space that is just so unrepresented. I know that Councillor Ryan has talked so much about mental health. I thought Wayne Swass was absolutely amazing. His group called Pucker Up. I think that if anyone can help guys engage, it's him. He just talks absolutely from the heart, tells real stories, and he obviously challenges people to do something and to think about things in their life. I think this is an area where council could review in future the money we spend on this space and look towards. I know in the past we've had on the area of meals and nutrition, we had state government put money in for a while, and we had someone working here who was going out to schools talking in that space. I think it's an area that's really untapped. I think a group like this with Wayne, we could look at possibly some money in future who might go out to meet a lot of men's groups to talk about these things, because it's just an amazing space that guys don't talk about these things. They self-medicate. They try and forget about things, and I just think that it just I walked away really, amazingly impressed, and it really challenged even for those who probably think they know a little bit about it. They really knew nothing about it, and he really opens it up. So it was great to go along. It was great to get that connection, and hopefully as a council we might be able to consider something like this in future to take out to the other men in our community. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Ross. Councillor Ryan.
Through you, Mayor. Just to carry on from what Councillor Ross has said, I went to a forum in Melbourne last week, and the forum was on mental health. And the people that attended it were councillors, were mayors, were people in the health profession, and the discussion was open to self-experience and also what we can do for our community in the future. What came out of the forum was extraordinary. It will be on Channel 10, and we had quite a few people from the media there, which was fantastic. I'm not sure exactly when it's going to be on Channel 10. We haven't been informed yet, but I'll keep you up to date. And it was amazing the things that came out of the questions, the groups that amalgamated from there, and the personal stories that some of the councillors talked about that affected them from their own family members who suffer with a mental illness. What has come out from that forum, and there will be many more forums, as the community is already aware that a submission was put through with the council, and it was passed, to push for services within the community. And that will go to the Royal Commission, and the Royal Commission is focusing on people from mid-range age group on to veterans, seniors, and people that are in our mid-range generation, that they're the ones that are missing through the gaps. That's what's came out of the forum as well with the discussions. They believe at the end of the forum that three things came out of it that were very important. Funding, lack of. Interest and funding from the government, lack of. And in the future, they see the future will be local government taking over from the funding that will be accessed to put these services in action within the community in partnerships. And we're already working on that at this stage with partnerships. We have 16 partnerships already, and we're hoping that the Royal Commission will see that there is a need for it down here in our community, and it will expand from all cultures, multicultural, and males in particular that are missing out, and that was one of the gaps. So I hope that helps you, Councillor Ross, that gives you a bit more information of how hard that I'm working with the team to get these services out for people that really need it. I also was asked to go to a motivation talk for the African called Girl Child. Young teenage girls from the age of 12 up until probably in their 20s. And it was a motivation talk in reference to showing that in Australia you do have choices. And some of the things that came out of that was arranged marriages. Some of the things that came out of that is the opportunities in education and what they can do. And one of the things that I pointed out to the young ladies was when I was their age, the only options I had was secretarial work, nursing, or a cleaner. So comparing that to where it's come to today, it motivated the girls in speaking out and taking initiative and feeling that they are worthwhile in this community within Australia, and that they will make a great contribution to our future. So that was really an eye-opener. And also the CWA celebrated their 20th year celebration. So Councillor Schilling and myself went along to that. Lots and lots of homemade food, which was fantastic, but also the work that they do within our community. I think it's a great service, and I think it's well deserved that they've made all the achievements to help our community. I also went to the SES celebration. They've just invested in a new truck that has every equipment you can think of, and couldn't lift the jaws of life. It was too heavy for me to lift, but they assured me if the adrenaline was running enough, I'd be able to lift it. So I don't know about that, but again, they've got to do a lot of events to raise money for dollar with the government to get these trucks, and these are people that save our lives. So hopefully there can be an improvement there. I won't go any further because they were the main ones that I think have a lot to do with our community. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Any other speakers on this subject? Yes, Councillor Wilmot.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to quickly highlight a couple of things that I've attended this month. Firstly, on the morning of October the 7th, I attended the Women in Harmony group, which is a program that's being run through Living and Learning Pakenham with council support, as well as the Department of Premier and Cabinet. This program, the women are actually doing two courses that are running side by side. One of them is involving leadership, and the other one is around social media, and with a social media project coming out at the end of it. These ladies come from all across the world, all different age groups, and it was terrific to be part of that. I went down there to talk about local government, and the questions that they fired at me were really interesting. They're all very keen to be engaged in their communities and wanted to know how they could volunteer, how they could find out more information about what's happening in the communities, how to engage better with council. So it was really good to see these ladies. Some of them have been in Australia for quite a while, some are fairly new to Australia, so it was really good to have that opportunity, and I hope to be kept informed as to how they go. Their projects aren't due until March next year, so I'm looking forward to seeing what that social media project's all about. And the other one I attended this year was the Cockatoo Josie By South Rec Reserve Committee's AGM. This rec reserve is the home to the Cockatoo Pony Club, which is just a very small club, and like a lot of pony clubs, they've suffered a bit over the years. Pony clubs' numbers across the board have declined over the last few years. However, the Cockatoo Club just in the last few months has had a real increase, and they are actually up 50% on their numbers now, so that's a good thing. So they're going against the trend. But I just wanted to highlight that this very small club of families hold two extreme events over the year. The first is their annual jump trial, which they hold in Wandon Park in January, which sees over 300 riders competing from all over the state. It's the second largest pony club run event in Victoria, so just a very small handful of people are running that top event. They also run an annual dressage jackpot event at the reserve in midwinter, and that is now the largest pony club dressage event in Victoria. So it just shows how just a small group of people can make amazing things happen. They also wanted to just express their thanks to council staff. Over the last couple of years, they applied for a capital works grant a few years ago, which they were successful in, which built them a brand new, probably about 10 times the size facility to what they had. They previously had nothing more than really a garden shed, and now they've got this great big shed that they can keep all their equipment and their jumps and so forth in. So It's a really good facility. It was a little bit cool on that evening. They could do with some heating or some insulation in there because it is just a aluminium shed. So it was a little chilly, but it was a great facility, and they think that they're sitting pretty at the moment. So they wanted to thank the council staff because certainly Gordon Campbell worked extremely close with them and was very, very helpful to them. And I'm sure that they have thanked Gordon themselves, but I'd like to just make mention that Gordon's been terrific to some of our community groups working through their capital works projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilmot. Any other speakers on reports? Councillor Jeff Springfield. Yes, Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor. I thought I'd go in line with everyone else who's going down the table and across next, I guess. Look, I'll just make a quick mention of an event that myself and Councillor Schilling attended in Emerald last week. And it was a recycling community forum. There was several other representatives there. Brad Batten, our local member, was there, as well as Councillor Mike Clark from the Yarra Rangers. And look, it was a really well-attended forum. I thought maybe 40 to 50 people of impassioned community members looking to put ideas out there and discuss opportunities to help fix our recycling crisis that we've all been talking about in the media lately that we're experiencing in Victoria. There was some impassioned members that were a little disgruntled at what has happened or the lack of action that has happened. But in the end, I think we discussed well, and everyone was there for the right reasons. It was a good night. And I just want to make mention of one thing that came out, right, from community members, and especially Councillor Mike Clark really pointed out that some of the fault that we have currently in our recycling system compared to systems that run better in other countries, let's say in Europe, and I've just recently read an article on Wales, which is one of the best performing recycling nations, and it's all about separation. And the issues that we've had was, once upon a time, not that long ago, China accepted all our recycling and we didn't do a lot of separation for it. So because of that, it was quite contaminated. They decided to refuse it because there's too much work involved to try and unseparate it once it has been all squashed together. So the ideas they were putting out there is that if we need to think on a larger scale, not just ourselves as one shire, but across all the shires in this state and the country, of better separation methods straight from the get-go, rather than chucking it all in the one truck, so then you have to try and separate it out, but having more so that users separate, and maybe having a one collection point in town centres and hubs and such. Or there's many ideas out there, but the point is, apparently, if you throw your glass and your paper and your plastics all in one thing, then the glass gets broken and spreads broken glass, and the rest of it becomes contaminated, and then none of it can be recycled. And due to this, there's something like 25% of recycling is considered contaminated and can't be used because it wasn't separated from glass, which when it gets thrown in the back of a truck and transported around the place is kind of probably going to break somewhere along the line. There was a great article that I read today in the ABC. I'm talking on this same thing across Victoria. They're talking at the moment of maybe looking at 6 sort of separate trials, of separation points, of having 6 different cartons or something. Yep. So I think I really look forward to what we come up with as a sector in the near future. But I want to applaud the community members that were involved with that, and Peter Cook from the Dandenong Ranges Renewable Energy Association, who put the forum together and conducted it. It was really good to see community together, working together to try and come up with solutions for our future. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Springfield. Thank you. Yeah, 6 bins per household will be really. I'll be interested to see how that. I know that come up from Fort Phillip Council, and I'll be interested to see how that would work here in Cardinia. You sure this side here doesn't want a shot at this? Councillor Owen, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. In October is Walk to School Month, and we all know, we talked about it earlier, about the issues around parking around schools, and I know it very well. So I know there are a number of schools and families are getting involved in that council program, so I encourage people to do that. I've done that a few times in the last couple of weeks, which is really good. Lost maybe a kilo or two, maybe, but hopefully. But it's a really good program. I know all councillors are supporting it. In September, council became the delegated committee of management of 13.6 hectares of the Crown land along Tumark Creek. So that's pretty much just going up Tumark to the left, going up towards Brown Road. We've been asking for the department to approve that since 2013, and they've finally given that authority and for council to manage that, and it probably will be with our partners of the Tumark Valley Landcare. That is a really good outcome, and I know that the Tumark Valley Landcare, who are very active, they do a great job in that space, and they've got lots of plans. I've met with Simon Dunstan representing that group in relation to the pedestrian links up to the aqueduct, and they got a grant from the Pack and Racing Club, which was then transferred to council to conduct a detailed design of pathways up to the aqueduct, that missing link from Princess Highway to the aqueduct. We're working through that. Detailed reports are being done and plans, and then obviously that will be a discussion point in future council budgets and other government fundings. But I just want to acknowledge that we now are the land managers, something that we've been asking for since 2013, and thank the Tumark Valley Landcare for all their amazing work in that space. Kenilworth Avenue. We talk about Kenilworth a bit, but it looks very positive, and thank you to the General Manager of Infrastructure and Environment for his efforts and his office's efforts in resolving that issue. So works on stage 1 has recommenced back in September, following an agreement between the contractor and the developer. The developer has indicated that works are on track to be completed by April 2020. Council officers have instituted regular meetings with the developer to monitor progress of works. Council, and we do understand the frustration of many residents in that area, and we acknowledge that this has been a difficult time, but it's great that it's now resolved, and council is, in the coming months, will adopt the tender for stage 2, which is the completion of the Kenilworth from the Beaconsfield end, and that will be obviously a sealed road, we're hoping by mid next year, and that will be a great outcome, and it's been frustrating, so thank you to the officers for that. On the couple of Fridays ago, we had the Casey Cardinia Foundation dinner, so I would like to thank all the people who supported that dinner, sponsors, amazing contribution. And on that night, we, as a committee, and I'm one of the directors along with the CEO, is a director of the Casey Cardinia Foundation, but we gave grants to the Men's Shed, and that's obviously through the Biggest Blokes Barbecue. They donate to the foundation to then allocate those funds. So Men's Health, Endeavour Hills Men's Shed, Akuna Park Men's Shed, also Casey North Community Information Support Services, Concern Australia Welfare, Orange Sky Australia, Hillview Bunyip Aged Care in relation to their Men's Shed, Follow Baptist Church Cardinia, which is the Christmas hampers that will go out on behalf of with the Salvation Army, and councils involved in that. South Sudanese Australia Youth United, a program in relation to young Sudanese residents. ACE Foundation, Lakeside Residents Group, in relation to one of their fantastic events they run. Pearsdale Baxter Junior Football Club in engaging young people that are disadvantaged in relation to meeting the costs of participating in sport. The Southern Ranges Environment Alliance and Dream Harmony, ACE Foundation, Hampton Park Football Netball Club, the Tennis Club, and the United Cultural Support in Hampton Park. So almost, I think, around about $90,000 was allocated through the foundation. So congratulations to all those who received grants. Thank you to all the directors. And that's about me. So thank you very much. Oh, sorry, one more. The Nobelius Nobelius and Emerald Museum, they launched their beautification grant. Sorry, I've got multiple devices going and hundreds of paper, and I just can't find the item, but I just want to bring that up. It's a great project. So I helped sort of open it. It's named the Nobelius Trees Project, which identifies the trees and shrubs within the park with signs which will inform visitors of the botanic and common names, family name, original location of the specimen. So I think there's several hundreds of little signs on the base of trees within Nobelius and Nobelius Park, and they received a beautification grant. So that looked really good. They're really passionate about, obviously, the trees up there in the project, and I believe they'll be applying for further grants through the beautification grants process because they want to finish the project. Not every tree or species of tree has received a little nameplate, so they want to finish that off. But we all know that the Nobelius Nursery, the park there is a site of state significance. It's a great asset we have in our Shire, and this will further improve the visitor experience. So thank you to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Councillor Schilling, you sure? Last chance. Okay. Thank you, councillors. I just would like to point out a couple of things, if I may. One is, of course, we've also got a little road issue that the community have been really concerned about and been speaking to me about quite often. That's the section of Bald Hill Road near the Oakview Lane that has also got a problem with the contractors, and we're working on. I want to thank you, Peter Benezik, for stepping in and following that one up for us, because it's been going on for a long time. And that section of road is really, you've got to drive it to understand how bad that little piece. It's only a very short piece of road, but boy, it's a mess, and it needs to be addressed. And it's a difficult one when we've got outside contractors running these projects. We're going to have so much input into those. Councillor Owen, you're talking about the Casey Cardinia Foundation, and I was there. It was a fantastic night to go to. One thing that happened on that night was the Herb Thomas. There's a trust called the Herb Thomas Trust, which has been going on for many, many years. Of course, the Thomas family are very well known in Pakenham through the Star News group. You know who the Thomases are. Herb Thomas was one of the first operators of the Pakenham Gazette all those years gone by. Well, there was a trust the charter's been handed in of that trust, and therefore we decided, I'm a trustee of that trust, and we decided to make the funding available to the Casey Cardinia Foundation to put it back where it can be used in the best possible way possible. So it was to the amount of $55,000, which went into the Casey Cardinia Foundation. So it was really great, and great run by the trustees, headed by Roger Hall, who's the chairperson. So it was a really great thing to see that money being put back into our community in another form. Okay, so we've got presentations of petitions. Councillors, we've got any petitions to table tonight? We have not. Okay, community question time. We have received 2 questions tonight from Gloria O'Connor. I recognise Gloria O'Connor in the gallery, and I also would like to respectfully acknowledge being the president of the, as we were speaking before, of the Cardinia Ratepayers Association as well, Gloria. And it's nice to see you here in the audience. I refer your question to the General Manager of Infrastructure and Environment, Mr. Peter Benezik, to read and answer your question. Thank you, Peter.
Through you, Mayor. Thank you, Mrs. O'Connor, for the questions. They are as follows. Who is responsible for regular cleaning of the Berwick Pakenham Museum building? The committee and volunteers who open and close the building for visitors, or a council working maintenance team? I can report that the council provides a modest cleaning service at this location. Question 2, what planning limitations, if any, apply to development sites where the site slopes and various bulldozing and earth shifting is carried out? Are any council inspections made to assess the site if necessary? Well, generally speaking, there are a number of planning controls that seek to control development, particularly on sloping sites, which require substantial earthworks such as large subdivisions. These requirements may vary from site to site, depending on the applicable zones, overlays and general provisions. An application or permit would be accompanied by appropriate plans. Reports are then assessed by planners and engineers. Site inspections are a requirement of each permit application and are carried out prior to a permit decision being made. Where a development is deemed appropriate, conditions to control these works are placed on the permit and the permit holder is required to comply with the conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Benezek. Ms. O'Connor, we will provide a written response to you as well to your questions in due course. Thank you. Okay, before closing the meeting, I'd just like to say a few words as this is my last council meeting as Mayor of this great Shire. Sadly, my time as Mayor of this community is slowly but surely coming to a close. Through my term, we have had to endure the disaster of Bunyip bushfires. The recovery from this disaster, both physically and mentally, will continue as long as it's necessary. The way in which the whole community rapidly responded was amazing, simply amazing. The resilience of our community post-disaster is a cause of great personal pride. Other than the bushfires, I have thoroughly enjoyed my time as Mayor over the last 12 months. It's been a great honour. I'm extremely proud and a privilege to serve as Mayor, and I'll thank you all for your confidence in electing me to the position. I trust that I've performed up to your expectations, maybe not always. Your support and encouragement, and I've been very much encouraged by you, has made my job that much easier to do. I want to thank you. To the Chief Executive Officer and all the staff of the Shire, the ones I call my Cardinia family, thank you also. I've enjoyed this great relationship with each and every one of the staff members here. I've come into contact with the persons that they always have gone out of their way to be special, to make me look good, if you like, and they've done that, I hope. To assist me in every manner I could possibly think of. As an organisation, we have achieved tremendous outcomes for the community, I believe. As I'm positive that the new Mayor will see these results to continue through into 2020. It's a sad day, all right, but I've got to move on. Someone asked me the other day, what are you going to do when you step out of the mayoral position? I thought about it for a couple of seconds and I thought I'll just sit in a corner somewhere at home with my dog in a dark corner and just sob for probably a couple of days and until I get over it. But we get through these things. But I do want to thank my fellow councillors for stepping up, being there when requested, particularly at the citizenship ceremonies that they come along to. And I don't want to point out anyone specific, but I'd like to point out the Deputy Mayor, who did a fantastic job in that spot. Thank you for stepping in when I couldn't be at two places at once. And you were there. Thank you, Councillor Ross. You were really a strength behind this whole thing. But it's been an enjoyable time, I must admit. So we've got the Cup Day in between time, so we missed out on one meeting. So we just got a briefing to go, then we've got the election. So on the 11th of November, a new Mayor will commence on their 12 months journey for us. And I hope they receive the same level of support that I've received from everybody, including the community, and they're able to enjoy during my term, that I've endured during my term as Mayor. I want to thank my family as well, who have been very supportive behind the scenes and to come to every event that where possible. So it's been a wonderful experience, and I just hope that the new Mayor, of course, can step in, and I'll I guess, fill in as deputy mayor and be able to maybe support that person, whoever that may be in the future. But thank you all for being here tonight. I want to thank the gallery, particularly the not the ordinary supporters, the ones that come here all the time. It's really good to see you here again tonight, and some that haven't been before, some are new members of the gallery being here. It's really great to see you here supporting this council, which I believe is the best council in the state, but I'm a little bit biased in that way. But so thank you all. This concludes tonight's proceedings, and I declare the meeting closed. Thank you.